You know, as we all talked about before, we all discussed how third grade GMAS data is constantly going down. It's declining. So over the last 3 years, we've noticed that math has declined, and it's declined to the point where before it was 27% of the students they scored proficient or distinguished, and in this past one it went down to 7%, from 26 to 7%. That's a big for math. 7, 7%. So, and that's the GMAT. Now, when we talk about our map data, the map data says, or had us thinking, it indicated that it would do so much better than 7%. But at the end, it was 7% from 26% 7%. So I know also we talked about the different root causes, that things that might have caused this, some solution. But I wanted to really be deeper into the root causes and the solution, because even though we just took the MAP assessment, what, 2 weeks ago, it's showing that we should see an increase. But as we've talked, MAP hasn't always been an indicator. You know, sometimes a lot of times it's off.
Yeah.
It gives us that false sense of we're going in the right direction. And then at the end, when we see the scores, we actually did go in the right direction. So, like some top root causes that we talked about. The integration of language development within the math instruction. The kids, the students, though ELL students seem to not really understand what it is. We understand that they get the numbers part of it. They add, subtract, multiply, great, fast. But the language part, do they understand what they need to do with those numbers?
What I see is that is a big issue for them, because even like with just reading, period, with reading stories, when I was doing a reading instead of grammar, it took me longer to do the reading part because there's so much. You have got to build that background information. They don't have the same thing that our students have that are native English speakers. So you got to build everything. And so same thing with the math, you know, like you have to build that background, and that takes time. And so that right there, when they're in the classroom, it's great that they're in there with the English speakers and that they are, because we had a great system last year with that. So they're in there with the other kids, and they weren't just grouped with the ESOL kids. They were in there grouped with other kids, so they heard the language. But that's fine when we're in groups and they're doing hands-on stuff. But when they're doing independent stuff, because when they're doing the hands-on stuff, they can ask, what do I do? But when they're doing the independent stuff, that's where the language comes into play that they don't know. They can't go and say, hey, what is that? What does that mean? They don't have that. So breaking that down is essential. But I think our school needs SIOP training as a school so that everybody can know, because everybody doesn't know. From what I've seen, it's like, you know, we just assume, all of us, we just assume that, like with English speakers, you know, like you assume that your mama has taught you your phone number, your address. But when we go to ask, they don't know. So it's the same thing as teaching ESOL students. We assume that they know certain things because they can speak the language, but they can't process it as fast as our native speakers do. And so that processing is an issue. And then building that background is a big issue.
When I hear you say that, it kind of makes me think of we're teaching to the whole, as opposed to
right.
And it's hard because like today I was doing a like just finished with a Google step back, and we were doing proper nouns, and one of the questions was afterwards we were talking about the mom. So I said, well, how many of y'all know what your birthday is? You're in the 5th grade, and only one person knew. I literally had to go get my chart and tell them what month you were born. I said, and what does that mean? They stared at me. They have no clue what that means. You know, so you got to remember when they go home, their parents have limited English. So how can they teach them where the gap is. Like we have these conversations. They don't have these conversations at home. I mean, I was talking the other day and I was reading a sentence and they had something about a beagle. That was a part of those little, well, I can't take it out and dumb it down. So, cause that's what they're gonna run into. I had to go to my computer, flip the screen, go pick up what a beagle was. By the time I went back to it, they still forgot what a beagle was. So now I go back there, they still looking at me. I'm like, okay, well, let me go back to the beagle again. So it's not retained too. So, and it's like every sentence I had to go back because how they can't make sense of the sentence when they don't even know what you're talking about. So it ain't even just the language of the standard. It's the language of the questions. Some of the words in the questions you asked me about something, what is your birthday? Well, if I don't even know what birthday means, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. So you still now on top of the language of whatever skill, you're missing the languages, the words inside of that. Because they don't read. They're not reading because their books aren't in Spanish to translate to English. So now they got limited, some of them have limited language proficiency in addition to the language of the standard and all. So you just got they got a double whammy that you're working with. So, and then you have those kids that might be a little bit more accelerated. And a lot of those kids, you may have English speakers at home. So you can look at, you remember Adair from last year, his brother, Geraldo. I just had his brother for the first time. Well, I can look at the pattern. There's English in the home. So he's a lot more. Even Issel doesn't come to school that often. But my God, when she comes, the lot of them in there every day, she can teach them. It's so you can see it's a background. It's a background thing too at home. How proficient are the parents? Because those parents don't speak any English.
And you think some of it also is because I had a student, it's not even that they don't speak the language. You are teaching them nothing even in your language. So
Right.
there's no connection.
Yeah.
I had a student that came to first grade. You guys know there was the fifth grader and the fourth grader. They had never been to school before.
Yeah.
But it was the basic things like colors. I'm not teaching colors in first grade. He doesn't even know the colors in his language. He doesn't even know how to count to 10 in his language.
Right.
So when I'm trying to tell you in my language and I'm trying to translate, there's no connection because although yes, you speak English, you don't have any of this. I mean Spanish. You don't have any Spanish background.
You never been to school.
Right.
So
Right.
I
have the
some of these
brother
kids
now.
that come in on the boat, literally on the boat, where they do nothing. So they getting here barefoot practically. So we got a lot of stuff we dealing with. They in class, you thinking they paying attention to you. They thinking about how they barely made it over here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so they got a lot of background stuff that our kids don't even.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
We have some third graders who I just recently found out that it's 3 families living in one trailer in the mill, and these families are not related to each other. They're not related to each other. Each family has its own bedroom, and they one of the children has a sibling, and when they came over here, they had nothing. Like we were scrounging around last year trying to find clothes and shoes for the Sanchez and all that for this particular family. The other 2 families in there seem to be more financially secure than the other family, but they're not that financially secure because there's 3 families living in one trailer and they're third graders. All 3 of them are third graders. And so it's like one of them, the one who, doesn't have any financial resources really, sleeps all the time. And he knows no English whatsoever. But I just started doing word families with him and the other newcomers for third grade. And when I tell you his face lit up because he could sound out when I did at, and then we put at together. This is third grade. When he saw that he could do that, his face just lit up because he finally was able to read a word. And they don't have, they don't have the resources. And like you said, if mama and daddy, they may not be educated. So they don't even know how to educate their children in their language because they don't know how to read it. the parents don't know how to read it. We send stuff home in Spanish. Sometimes they don't even know what it says because they can only speak it. You know, they can't read it.
Cause the kids don't even know Spanish. Cause I was giving them I was talking the days of the week. And I started doing it in Spanish and everybody looked blank. I'm like, well, darn, you don't even know what is Spanish? I was like, oh, Lord Jesus. I'm like, I'm over here telling you in Spanish. I'm thinking I'm gonna get some kind of connection.
but not so
much.
It's hard to make connections.
You don't know what connection.
So, but in order to make them, do you think that we need to use more visuals? You know,
Definitely, definitely.
and then hands-on, because
Yeah.
you know, I was just thinking about what you're saying. You send home a note to them or whatever, and then all these words mean nothing to me. But if I put some images up there, when they think,
I
can
got
connect to it. And also, you know, and then the small groups, target small groups. I just can't see us moving kids, especially this group of kids without small group instruction.
Right.
I just can't see it.
Because even in my group, that group of third graders that I have 3 groups in that one group. And I have it's 5 of them that I'm doing the letter sounds with and the word families with. And then the ones that are a little bit more advanced, I've taught the lesson and they're over there working together. And then there's 2 that just got moved because they're higher and they're over there doing their own thing. So it's like using that small group is going to be key. But like I said, the biggest key, I think, for us, we need PSYOP training as a school. Because the biggest takeaway for me when I got my endorsement, my ESOL endorsement, was having to sit. They made us go to the International Center and sit. I had to sit in the Vietnamese class. I had to sit in a Spanish class. And when I tell you, my head started hurting the first 5 seconds of that Vietnamese because everything was Vietnamese. And they were talking so fast. And I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is what our kids go through. And they made us do that. And I said, that would be amazing if every teacher had to go through that. Because then you can realize that no matter how much I yell or I get loud that's not gonna make me understand. You know, and we get frustrated because we got scores we got to make sure we got to make sure that we have everything covered. We do these standards, we do all these things. And so that's a lot of pressure on our back as a teacher. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to remember we need to be sensitive to the situation, especially when you only have a short amount of time to do everything. But I think if we had that PSYOP training, that would at least give us a heads up because we're human before we're anything.
Is there any way I know they can come to the school and do?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I know we had a schedule one while, but I don't know what happened. Like that is
Maybe some of the
yeah.
teachers have that.
Yeah.
And I know I had it years ago.
Yeah.
But even people who have had it years ago.
Yeah, it's great to have a refresher, you know. And like you said, the visuals, that's key right there. That is key. And that's part of the PSYOP training is to let us know we need these visuals. These kids need these visuals. I know, and I'm guessing y'all all 3rd grade, I know because y'all do the pictures. She does pictures with the vocabulary for the kids because that makes the biggest difference for them when they're learning the vocabulary words because that way they can have that connection. I did a 3rd grade lesson from the book with my 3rd graders, 4th graders, and 5th graders, and none of them knew what a bulldozer was. So I had
after you showed the picture.
Well, no. I had showed
right
before I showed them because it said the machine dug a large hole. And then it said, the next one said something about a bulldozer. And so, because we were trying to find what the nouns were and which noun was the subject. And so, we were doing that, but none of them knew what a bulldozer was, just
the word. They didn't know.
But once I showed them the picture, because I told them, I said, you know what this is, you just don't know what it is in English. And then when I showed them the picture, they were like, oh, I know what that is. My name is construction.
Did they say it in Spanish?
Yes.
Did they say it to you now in Spanish?
You know what? I don't know. I didn't ask.
Okay.
I did not ask that. I was just so glad that they knew so we could move forward
But yeah.
and not stay on.
Back to what she's saying about the visuals, that's why, the district is definitely pushing that CRA. So I think that also would help with those hands-on materials and how that translates into the representation, with their drawings And the drawing is what lets us know their thing.
Yeah.
I think that that's the part that can kind of help those misconceptions. So just really, really using that CRA.
I think too, in addition to that, especially, with, our EL, is making sure that we're doing the EL support through the learning plan, because it tells you the small group. So if we're just sticking to a typical, well, this is what I want to do in my small group, and we're not gearing it towards specifically our EL, then that's something that we need to do with them, like pull directly from the learning plan, what it's telling us to do for EL.
And